And Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dack joins me on the news from Washington, D.C. to discuss this. Good to have you join us, Calvin Dack.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Let me start by asking you what your take on the claims by Mexico, and if you think that Mexico can apportion any blame to any other group for the level of crime and corruption within that country.
Well, I think that the suit itself is unprecedented, and that this may be a new novel way to bring attention to this issue. Although I doubt that it will be successful in U.S. courts. Now, when it comes to who's to blame and who's responsible, I think that the Mexican government in its lawsuit made a pretty good case that the murders that they've seen over the past years have been due to illegal guns brought in from the United States, because they have, compared to the United States, very strict gun laws. So I think that the Mexican government is, they're not saying it's all the gun manufacturers' fault, but they're saying that they provide the weapons for the crime they're trying to tackle.
So I want to pick up on something you said earlier as to whether this lawsuit will be successful. We know that some time ago, about 30 cities in the U.S. also had a similar lawsuit against gun manufacturers. As they were winning this case, the gun manufacturers went to Congress to get an immunity statute. So this somehow makes it very difficult for Mexico, doesn't it? Because the laws that hold gun manufacturers in the U.S. accountable or responsible for illegal trade is very, very limited.
Yes, you're right. And it's not the reason why you don't see more lawsuits by Americans in the United States is because of that shielding and that immunity that gun manufacturers have. As we know with the Sandy Hook massacre, when all of those poor children, kindergarten and first grade, were killed, those families have received an offer from one of the gun manufacturers, because the only kind of window against that immunity is for deceptive practices, marketing, but even that's very hard. Now, what that does say about the Mexican lawsuit is part of what they allege is that these guns have been specifically marketed towards cartels and others who are perpetrating violence. So once again, the immunity you mentioned is what has stopped even Americans from suing, but the one part where it might be possible, the marketing aspect, is something that the Mexican government has mentioned in its suit.
So we know that the U.S. has been trying to control the influx of illegal migrants from Mexico through the Mexico-U.S. border. And recently, the Vice President Kamala Harris has been saying that, look, the best way to deal with this issue is to ensure that the issues that push people away from their countries to the U.S. are dealt with in those countries to help them deal with them. One of those issues in Mexico is the violence by drug cartels. And it now looks like firearms, or allegedly firearms from the U.S. is contributing to that violence to push people back to the U.S. That's almost like Mexico saying, look, America, you're also responsible for people coming to your country illegally. Does that sound that way to you?
Yes, and I think that's why when you combine COVID, the ongoing challenges of illegal migration in this country, and violence, you see how complicated it is. One of the things that the lawsuit pointed out, which I think speaks to your comment about United States culpability, is that it is much harder in Mexico to buy guns than it is in the U.S. And a lot of times it's American citizens who buy guns, what we call straw buyers, who then bring them into Mexico. So the Biden administration recognizes that it's not all coming from Mexico, but that what's happening in the U.S. is contributing to it, which is probably one of the reasons why we don't have a solution yet.
Absolutely. And I hope with this, maybe the U.S. helping out with the monitoring of this illegal trade might also be one of the solutions. Thank you so much for talking to us, as always, Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dack.
Thank you.